Welcome to Book Solid, the home service growth podcast. Helping service businesses capture more calls, respond faster to leads, and turn more opportunities into book jobs.
By 4:15, the homeowner had already booked another plumber. The strange part was that 3 people inside the company thought someone else was calling. The dispatcher had taken the request, the owner had seen the message, a technician had mentioned there might be room on the schedule. Everybody had touched the lead. Nobody had actually moved it forward. That is not a lead generation problem. That is an ownership problem. Here is how it happened. At 10:30 that morning, a homeowner submitted a request about a leaking water heater. They wanted to know whether someone could come out that day. The dispatcher was already juggling several jobs, so she sent the owner a message. Can you see if we can fit this in? The owner was at a job site. He glanced at the message and thought, the dispatcher will check back with me. A little later, the dispatcher looked at the message again and thought, he's probably checking with the technician. Then a technician said there might be an opening, but nobody wrote down who would confirm it or when the customer would hear back. At noon, the homeowner was still waiting. At 2, the request was still sitting in the general flow of the day. At 4:15, the homeowner called again and said they had found somebody else. That story is familiar in plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, landscaping, and just about every other home service business. Not because the team doesn't care. Usually the team is working hard. The problem is that a lead can pass through several capable people without ever having one clearly accountable next step. Welcome to Booked Solid, the home service growth podcast. I'm Jeff. Here we talk about simple systems that help service companies capture more calls, respond faster, and turn more opportunities into booked jobs without adding unnecessary complexity or office staff. Today, we're fixing that silent handoff with one simple standard.
The standard is this. Every inquiry gets one owner, one next action, and one deadline. One name, one thing that needs to happen next, one time by which it needs to happen. That sounds almost too basic, but basic is exactly what busy teams need. A complicated process can look impressive on a quiet day. A clear process survives a Monday morning when the phones are ringing, 2 technicians are late, and somebody is asking whether the truck has the right part. Let's start with the word owner, because this is where people sometimes push back. They hear, you own every lead, and think, am I supposed to personally make every call, chase every technician, send every estimate, and update every customer myself? No, that is not the idea. The owner is accountable for movement. They make sure the next step happens, even if another person performs part of the work. A dispatcher might own a new HVAC inquiry. The dispatcher may ask a service manager for availability. An office teammate may send the estimate. A technician may provide the technical answer. But the dispatcher still owns making sure the customer receives a response. Ownership is not about doing everything. It is about making sure nothing disappears between people. The next action also has to be something you can observe. Follow-up is too vague. Call the homeowner to confirm whether Thursday morning works is clear. Ask the technician for availability and update the customer by 11 is clear. Send the estimate link, then call at 4 if it has not been opened is clear. And then there is the deadline. Before lunch, within 15 minutes, by 4 o'clock, before the end of the day. Without a deadline, a next action becomes a good intention waiting for a less busy moment. In a home service business, that less busy moment may never arrive. The rule does not require a new platform. It requires your team to stop using phrases like, somebody call this customer, or, can you take a look when you get a chance? Those phrases sound cooperative, but they hide responsibility.
Now picture the same plumbing request handled with ownership. The dispatcher receives the water heater inquiry and enters 3 simple details. Owner, next action, deadline. Owner, the dispatcher. Next action, confirm whether a technician can offer a same-day or next morning appointment. Deadline, call the homeowner with an answer by noon. The dispatcher may still need help. She may message the owner. She may ask a technician whether a job can be shifted. But she is no longer waiting for someone else to remember the lead. She is driving the next step. At 11:30, the owner says there may be an opening. The dispatcher confirms the time, calls the homeowner, and says, we can be there tomorrow morning. Would you like us to reserve that appointment? That customer may still say no. They may choose another company.
They may decide to wait, but now the business gets a clear answer instead of silent loss. That distinction matters. You cannot win every inquiry. You can make sure every inquiry receives a timely, intentional response. Here is another version of the handoff. The dispatcher tells the owner, "I'm assigning this to you. Your next action is to confirm technician availability, and I need the answer by 11:30. If you cannot get to it, tell me before then, and I'll take it back." That sentence is very different from, "Can you see what you can do?" The first sentence names the person, the action, and the deadline. The second sentence creates room for everyone to assume the other person will handle it. And when a technician is involved, say the handoff out loud or write it in the customer record. Maria owns the customer response. James is providing availability by 11. Maria calls the customer by 11:30. Now each person can help without confusing help with ownership. The next question is where ownership lives at different times of the day. During business hours, choose the person who owns new inquiries until they are booked, declined, or deliberately assigned to someone else. For many companies, that is the dispatcher or office coordinator. For others, it may be a service manager or a lead coordinator. The exact job title does not matter as much as the rule being obvious. If the dispatcher needs an answer from the owner, the dispatcher still owns the customer-facing next step. They are not expected to know everything. They are expected to make sure the answer gets found and delivered. For after-hours inquiries, do not rely on a vague promise that someone will check the messages. Name the person or coverage process. Maybe an on-call team member reviews new inquiries every 30 minutes until a set evening cutoff. Maybe an answering service identifies emergencies and sends non-emergency requests into the next day queue. Maybe a rotating employee handles urgent calls and assigns a backup before going offline. Any of those can work. What does not work is leaving the responsibility in a group chat and hoping the most available person notices it. Also, define what happens when the primary owner is unavailable. A person going on lunch, driving into an area with poor service, starting a field repair, or leaving for the day should not leave open inquiries attached to their name without a transfer. The transfer can be simple. I'm moving this to Maria. Her next action is to call the customer, and it needs to happen by 3. Then Maria accepts the handoff. If she cannot, the lead goes to the backup owner. That last part is important. A reassignment is not complete just because somebody typed a name. The new owner has to know they have it. The goal is not to build a rigid process where nobody can help outside their lane. The goal is to make responsibility visible while the team stays flexible.
You can put this into your existing call log, dispatch board, customer record, or lead list. You do not need to buy software before you fix the handoff. Add 3 visible fields if they are not already there. Owner, next action, deadline. Then establish 3 quick review points. For example, 8 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 4:30 before the day starts winding down. The review is not a meeting about every customer. It is a scan for exceptions. Look only at new, open, and overdue inquiries. Ask 3 questions. Who owns it? What happens next? By when? If the owner field is blank, assign someone immediately. If the action is vague, rewrite it as a customer-facing step. If the deadline has passed, make a decision instead of allowing the lead to remain in limbo. Complete the action now, set a new deadline, or close the opportunity honestly. A clear no is better than silent uncertainty. If the customer hired another contractor, mark that outcome. If they are not ready, record the date they asked you to reconnect. If the request is outside your service area, close it and learn whether the pattern is worth addressing. One useful exception flag is simply owner missing or deadline overdue. Use a color, a label, or a short note. The best flag is not the most advanced one. It is the one the team actually checks. And measure movement, not paperwork. A lead should move toward a conversation, an appointment, a clear decision, or a documented next date. A name sitting in a field is not progress by itself. If a coordinator owns a request but is waiting for a technician, the next action is not wait. It might be message the technician and update the customer by 11. That gives the team control and keeps the customer from wondering whether anyone received the request.
If you want to test this without changing the whole company, start with one lead source for 7 days. Choose missed calls, web forms, quote requests, or messages from your website. Pick the source where you suspect the most opportunities are getting stuck. For every inquiry, record the arrival time, the owner, the next action, the deadline, and the outcome. At the end of the day, look at 3 numbers. How many came in? How many had a named owner and a deadline? How many were still open without a customer-facing next step? That small experiment will show you where the leak is. Maybe web forms are reaching the wrong inbox. Maybe after-hours requests are reviewed too late. Maybe estimates are being sent, but nobody is assigned to confirm whether the customer has questions. Maybe the owner changes halfway through the day and nobody is told. You do not have to solve every problem at once. Find the handoff that loses the most opportunities, then make that handoff explicit. And involve the people who do the work. Ask the dispatcher, the service manager, and the technicians where inquiries commonly stall. You may hear, "I thought the office was calling," or "I never knew that estimate was mine to follow up on." Those comments are useful. They show you where the process exists only in someone's head. One more guardrail. Do not turn ownership into blame. If a deadline is missed, ask what made the next action unclear. Was the owner unavailable? Was there no backup? Did the record fail to show the deadline? Fix the condition that allowed the lead to disappear. The point is not to catch people doing something wrong. The point is to help good people work from the same visible agreement. A small company can use one primary owner and one backup. A larger company can assign owners by lead source, service area, or type of work. Both structures can work. The failure happens when nobody can answer who is responsible right now.
Here is a quick exercise you can do today. Take the last 10 inquiries that did not immediately become booked jobs. Include calls, forms, texts, and estimate requests. For each one, write down the current owner. Then write the next customer-facing action. Finally, write the deadline. If you cannot answer one of those questions, you have found an unprotected opportunity. Do not spend the next hour explaining why the lead was difficult. Assign the next step. Call the customer. Confirm availability. Send the estimate. Ask whether they still need help. Or close the request if it is no longer active. Then decide how the next inquiry will work. Who receives it during business hours? Who covers it after hours? What happens during lunch, a day off, or a field emergency? Who is the backup, and how does that backup accept the handoff? Put the rules somewhere the team can see it. During a handoff, train people to say the owner's name, the next action, and the deadline out loud. That habit catches assumptions while they are still small. Think about how often someone says, "I thought you had it." That sentence is more than a communication problem. It is a revenue signal. When you hear it, ask, which part of the handoff was invisible? Maybe the owner was never named. Maybe the deadline was missing. Maybe the person who was supposed to help did not know they were part of the next step. The fix may be as simple as adding one name and one next action to the record. But that small detail can be the difference between a customer waiting for an answer and a customer choosing the company that responds first.
So, let's make the idea easy to remember. A lead does not need a complicated system to get lost. It only needs two people assuming the other person is handling it. Give every inquiry one owner, one next action, and one deadline. The owner is accountable for movement, not for doing every task personally. The next action should be observable. Call the customer, confirm availability, send the estimate, or set a specific follow-up date. The deadline should be clear enough that anyone reviewing the record can tell whether the action happened on time. Assign ownership when the inquiry arrives. Define after-hours coverage. Transfer open items before the primary person becomes unavailable. Then check new, open, and overdue inquiries at a few fixed times each day. You can start with the tools you already use and one lead source. The goal is not more software. The goal is fewer assumptions and more booked opportunities from the leads you already worked to generate. For more practical ideas you can put into practice this week, download the free guide, 107 Quick Wins for Home Service Businesses, at ProfitPulse.biz. It includes simple ways for plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, and other home service companies to capture more calls, respond faster, and turn more opportunities into booked jobs. Thanks for listening to Booked Solid, the Home Service Growth Podcast. Subscribe so you do not miss future episodes, and share this one with another contractor who could use a clearer handoff process. Until next time, keep building systems that turn more calls into booked jobs.